Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's seminar, and welcome those who are watching us online on webinar at the Digital Art Fair Asia. So our theme for today is collecting NFT art from Beeple to CryptoPunks. My name is Helen. I'll be your moderator for this panel discussion today. Just really quickly about me, I am a policy researcher at our Hong Kong Foundation. I lead the arts innovation team there. Basically, I do a lot of policy research and advocacy. We recently did a report on the convergence of arts and technology, which is how I actually got connected with the co-founder of Digital Art Fair Asia, who has kindly invited me to moderate this panel. So today we have a stellar lineup, obviously this afternoon, gathering experts that essentially represent, what a digital art ecosystem would look like. We've got experts in art, in crypto, and blockchain technology, and in investment. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. James Neary, co-founder of Digital Art Fair Asia. He is a seasoned art collector and investor, so a lot to hear from him later on. Next up, we have Mr. Max Moore, who recently moved to Hong Kong from New York. So welcome, Max, to join Sotheby's Hong Kong as head of contemporary auctions. He is an expert in NFT art and has spearheaded numerous NFT art auctions recently. And then we have Mr. Marco Lim over here, who is the managing partner of My Capital, a blockchain-focused asset management firm, aka he's our blockchain guru and expert. And online, we welcome Mr. Jehan Chu, who will be participating, as you can see, through Zoom. Jehan used to be an art dealer and now is a co-founder and managing partner at Kinetic, a blockchain venture capital and cryptocurrency trading firm based in Hong Kong. So you can see the career trajectory from art to cryptocurrency. So a perfect blend of arts and tech here. Last, but definitely not least, welcome to the one and only Twobadour joining us. For those of you familiar, need I say more? Twobadour is famously known for buying Beeples every day's the first 5,000 days. So the NFT artwork that basically, started it all. So he also stewards the world's largest NFT fund called the Metaverse. Twobadour, I'm sure our audiences are dying to hear more from you. So this panel discussion will be around 1 hour. And as you know, I've just sped through just a bit of everyone's bios. So I'm going to just really quickly invite each speaker to give a 3-minute or something introduction based on what you're currently working on and any kind of current themes that you would really like to discuss in our discussion before we enter into our main discussion. And towards the end, I would like to leave about 15 minutes for Q&A from the floor. So our audience members, you can kind of start jotting down anything you would like to ask our panels. So James, could you kick us off?
Sure. I'm James. I've been in Hong Kong for about 10, 11 years, Asia for 20. I've been collecting art for about 20 years. I've been collecting digital art for over 10 years. I've been involved in street art and through the progression of that, art tours and festivals. And I'm involved in immersive art fairs as well, a tour that goes around the world. And so when Jillian approached me and we were discussing this, I thought it fit very well with my background and my knowledge. My traditional background is finance, like many people in the crypto community, but I've always been involved in art as well. So I've been doing digital art for a very long time, but NFT art obviously is quite a new thing. So I've only been involved in that for basically this year.
Yeah, basic. Thank you. What about you, Max?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Max Moore, born and raised in New York. Recently moved to Hong Kong about 2 months ago.
What a time to move to Hong Kong.
Yeah, right. You guys greeted me very well with a nice quarantine at the beginning, so thank you. So I was at Sotheby's, New York for the past 6 years. I actually studied psychology and neuroscience at university and switched over to art from a passion perspective. And I recently relocated to Hong Kong to run our contemporary art auctions here in Asia. But as of January of this year, maybe a little bit earlier during the pandemic, I started to explore the world of NFTs and spearheaded Sotheby's first NFT auction, which featured the artist Pac in April. And I now am the co-head of the NFT department for Sotheby's Worldwide with my colleague Michael in London. So a lot of interesting projects that we've done so far. The one downstairs is our most latest and one of my personal favorites, just because of what we've achieved with this incredible artist and the incredible team of Digital Art Fair and the mission that they're trying to accomplish. And I think, Sotheby's is in a perfect position to really kind of educate and curate in such a new medium. And so that's really what we're trying to focus on with each one of these sales.
Thank you, Max. Marco?
Hi, I'm Marco. I'm from My Capital. I've been working, same with James, working in the traditional finance for 14 years. Started with a few iBank, ended with Goldman Sachs. And in 2018, I joined My Capital, which is a blockchain crypto-focused investment firm in Hong Kong, licensed by the SFC. We focus on blockchain, investing in blockchain equities and crypto related product as well. I'm very new to NFT and art, compared to you guys, which have much more expertise and also we only started collecting in July and August, but I think this is a very good timing for people to start looking at NFT, because we have been trading our crypto fund for 2 years, but only in the big market cap coin, but not really focused on NFTs. But this is a really interesting project that we are now starting to look into, and we have a few collections that recently we bought, and hopefully we can make it bigger.
Did you have something to show us? Or?
Yeah, I think there's a slide that oops. Oh. And so recently we have bought a and Damien Heiss as well. This is the ape. Yeah, so there was some story that go behind it. So we have a tech company that we do technologies on blockchain. So we actually have a lot of ETH dormant on the side as well, besides doing some staking as well. There's nothing really I can do about it. So when Bored Ape come out, we think, oh, actually that's a good investment to go into, because at the same time I got the art appreciation value as well. My ETH I make use now is something that is unique. So that's one of the investments that we have. So as you see, we also have the Mutant as well. We then got in that early that we have the journal as well. So the Damien Heiss is something that we bought earlier in July. And I can talk about the stories later on as well. Sure. And you guys see that I made the shirt out of the ape as well. Yeah. That makes it very interesting because you have the full copyrights of the ape. Exactly. when we invest in that, that's what makes it so interesting. And the timeline that later on we can talk about. The ape actually have not a 2D but actually a 3D thing that have a timeline.
Perfect.
I guess Max is more the expert.
Well, you're the buyer.
I am the buyer.
So that's good. Yes, we need both. We need both.
Yeah. Thank you, Marco. Jehan, are you still with us? We would love to hear from you as well.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, everybody. Jehan here. I'm the founder of Kinetic. We have been in the space. Well, I've been in the space since around 2013. Helped to start some of the really early communities. We actually did the first global NFT conference in Hong Kong back in 2018 with Decentralized called Nifty. That was really the first time that the kind of NFT community has come together in any kind of global way. And Super Rare was there, Dapper was there, Animoca was there, and that was kind of like one of the proud points, because we really put Hong Kong on the map of being like an NFT kind of powerhouse. Kinetic, we've done over 200 investments. We're primarily, you can think of us as a VC. We've invested in things like FTX and Solana, Polkadot, Parity, BlockFi, all in the seed rounds. So we've been around the space for a long time. We're one of the earliest and most active investors in Asia. On the NFT side, we have done a lot more on the art side, I would say, because I personally am a fine art collector. I used to work at Sotheby's with Max, or not with Max, but at Sotheby's, similarly to Max, a different generation. I was there, I guess, for like 8.5 years. That's how I got to Hong Kong, through Sotheby's. And I became an art dealer after that. So I spent 8 years as a contemporary art dealer, building collections for ultra high net worths and also myself. I think one of the things I'm kind of interested to discuss at some point is really the evolution of the NFT space beyond the content side. thinking about NFTs for data, for user data, for financial purposes, for industrial uses, enterprise uses. Because while I think that NFT art and collectibles are great experimental kind of sandboxes for the technology, I think that the really larger opportunities have to do with NFTs and how they start to kind of penetrate the physical world, as well as the kind of financial realms, as well as social and government. So I think there's a really interesting space out there. Collection wise, since we're doing show and tell, which I love, I'll share really quickly a couple things that I'm particularly proud of on my own side. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So this is kind of my pride and joy. This is, if you can see that, I'll try to put it at the top. That's sorry, James. This is an Andy Warhol. When we talk about rarity and scarcity in the art world, for me, this is one of the penultimate. This is a one of one by Andy Warhol. This is a piece that he created in 1985, was resurrected by the Andy Warhol Foundation, and then sold by Christie's. Sorry, Max. Not, I think maybe a few months ago. There's only 5 different Warhol NFTs, and I was fortunate enough to kind of snag one of them. So for me, this really represents the complete convergence of my kind of history and my culture and my worlds between fine art and NFTs and crypto. And it's really one of the kind of crown jewels of my collection.
Perfect. Thank you, Jehan. Hello there, Twobadour. We would love to hear a bit from you as well. Welcome.
Thank you. It's interesting. I'm just looking at the view in front of me. I slid very silently in that panel behind James and Max and creeped everybody out. I can't help but think that feels like a metaphor for our own journey in the space, which is kind of what happened with us. I'm Twobadour. I am the steward of Metaverse. It's sort of complicated when people ask us what exactly it is we do. So we've been thinking about it a lot and it's evolved. But what I do understand is this much, that we are in the epicenter of a renaissance, a true convergence of technology and of finance, and all of it pushed forward by culture. And NFTs are the building blocks of this renaissance. And the role of Metaverse, as I see it, is to enable and to celebrate this renaissance, whether through patronage, investment, or production, or in this particular case, partying as often as possible.
Perfect. Thank you, Twobadour. Can I quickly, just to follow up on your question on actually Jehan's the topic that you wanted to discuss, as well as just now, Twobadour, what you mentioned. Can we just go back to one of the first basic questions, like what are the benefits of blockchain technology to art collecting now? Like in the topic of NFT art, what is the value of NFT to art? Can we set the basics first? Like, does anyone want to give this question a go? Perhaps Jehan, I can see you nodding. So could you kind of set the scene for us here?
Yeah, I mean, this is nothing less than a complete universe opener. This is a paradigm shift in terms of how we understand digital scarcity. And for the first time, really for the first time, and I think a lot of artists especially fine artists, who've been practicing in digital art, but have probably not seen their sales and their collecting really be as accessible to the collecting community. This is the first time that there is a technology which enables an entire generation of collecting. It creates digital scarcity, mathematically, provably enforced at scale, internationally, globally, and scalable across time as well, because the blockchain will basically, quote unquote, forever enforce this. So it's an incredible, creation that NFTs are living upon, and it will absolutely empower not only just one generation, but generations of artists from here to forever. That's what we're doing.
Thank you. You mentioned the value of NFT to art, but what about vice versa? How about like James and Marco? What about the value of art to NFTs? Is there a same kind of argument there, do you think?
Well, I think NFTs provide a community who obviously loves art, and it brings them into the NFT realm. And that excitement has spread across the whole of the NFT world. And these people have passion and creativity, and so they've been the main adopters or early adopters of the NFT technology. And so I think that's been one of the main benefits of art to NFTs.
Thank you.
And
sure.
I would just add two things that I've found quite compelling for NFTs. The first being the immutable provenance that's recorded. Coming from the traditional world, we do extensive research on provenance anytime we offer a work at auction for each work. But this makes it absolutely undeniably factually correct, the way that it can track through the blockchain. And then secondly, what I find really compelling and a real driving force for the future potential is the royalties that are built in for artists in perpetuity. Traditionally, an artist would receive only maybe 50% of the purchase price on the primary side. The gallery would receive the other 50%. And then any secondary market subsequent sale, neither the artist or the gallery would receive any sort of commission. And that's generally when the pieces are starting to get valued more expensive. But with blockchain technology, the artist can actually build in within the smart contract a share, a portion that they can receive in perpetuity, continuing this inclusive nature and supporting artists. Absolutely.
Thank you. Does Mark, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think to me it's more from an investment perspective. I think today is, we love the ape as well, but looking back, our investment journey into the ape, we look at it as a, crypto derivatives. We invest in, Ethereum options as well and other things, but we look at, instead of just investing in ETH, which is fungible, we want to invest in something fungible as well with liquidity. Of course, the value you're paying is some utility values and also the owner histories, and there will be some futures value as well. And that's what we're looking for. If ETH were to go up in value as well, at the same time the art pieces will go up in value because the art pieces are actually priced in crypto, and that's what make us very interested in investing.
Have you examined any sort of correlation link between the two prices? And if so, what is it?
No, right now, not so much correlated at the moment. We look at it. We see artwork normally. If you price in US dollars, normally from time to time, Max know, right? Every year it is going up, and although even though if US dollars going down, the artwork doesn't go depreciate. I think same thing is happening in the NFT world, right? If you own CryptoPunk and Ape as well, with good enough liquidity, that actually supports the art market. And at the same time, although it's priced in ETH, then you have that riding on that ETH growth as well as the same time the art value.
Yeah, I guess also the question now becomes like, what's the difference between collectibles and art? Does anyone want to, what are our thoughts on this?
Maybe I can jump in on that because I'm pretty famously not a collectibles collector. So I don't know if it's embarrassing or what, but I've basically missed the entire, CryptoPunks, Bored Apes, Art Blocks movement, because for me, I'm not actually, I'm a crypto investor. So I invest in companies, I invest in cryptocurrencies, but I'm not really an NFT investor per se. I'm an art collector. That's just my preference. And I'm more of a traditional art collector. So I buy fine art NFTs. And so when I look at kind of collecting NFTs, what I'm really looking for is criticality in the art practice. I'm looking for rigor from the artists themselves. And while I think that NFT collectibles are amazing and extremely valuable, and I think that some of them are historical, like punks, like apes, like art blocks, very important to the history of NFTs and this generation. I also think that a lot of the avatars will probably go to zero or could potentially go to zero because they don't necessarily have the longevity of community or the differentiation of practice that makes them, kind of viable in the long term. That's why I like Andy Warhol. That's why I like Urs Fischer, who with his Chaos series. I like artists, fine artists who have established pedigree and careers and are collected by major institutions, because I think that's really where the longevity of value will be. So I think that NFT art it's important in terms of how we think about it. Collectibles are great, and I think will evolve, but I think that we can't really kind of group them together. They're two completely different collecting practices.
Thank you. Twobadour, would you agree with what Jehan just said in the context of, you know, your Beeple art, NFT artwork? No? Okay.
I think he's frozen.
We can come back to Twobadour on that one. Would love to hear.
I think you would agree.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. Actually, Max, I wanted to follow up on one question you mentioned earlier on when you said at Sotheby's as an institution, there could be so much more to be done, you know, with the whole NFT movement and NFT art. I guess my question refers to kind of quality control or like quality kind of benchmarking. How do you think, you know, how does an institution determine what is quality art in the digital / crypto space and what isn't? How are you kind of figuring this out?
It's interesting. I would say I use some of the understanding of traditional market and how I approach that, because in my line of work in the contemporary auctions, I'm the one who decides what piece comes in and at what estimate. But with that, I have a lot more data to go off of, market research, institutional credibility, as Jehan was mentioning. A lot of the artists that are coming to the forefront of the NFT marketplace now are not necessarily following that traditional trajectory as a contemporary artist, physical artist. Beeple, for example, and Jehan and Twobadour would know much better, but was at the forefront of his craft and honing for the past 10 years. Rafik downstairs, he's been working with digital media for 15 years, starting as an architect. So it may not be like the same like art history 101 trajectory where you have to join a gallery and then a museum. It's happening very differently and organically. But I always am looking for an artist that's really pushing the conversation, really like pushing the boundaries of what is capable of what is possible. So with the pack sale, for example, that was the first sale that Sotheby's did. It was really focusing on a crypto native artist for a crypto native community. We had over 3,000 unique buyers, 95% of which were new to Sotheby's. Then the next sale we did was the natively digital sale, where we curated a selection of works that really showed the history of NFTs. We actually had Kevin McCoy's Quantum Mechanics, which was the first NFT ever minted back in 2014, all the way up to CryptoPunks, to some of the cutting edge artists of today's market. More recently, we did the Bored Ape sale because I wanted to explore this community collectible approach, because I do think it's just as viable within this new marketplace. It's not something that necessarily would fall within the traditional framework of Sotheby's. Like the contemporary art market is primarily and exclusively built on scarcity and rarity. And in this case, you have these large communities that are really bounding together to really achieve a common goal, which is to increase the floor price. And that's fascinating. You know, the community approach, giving, you know, this sense of friendship among individuals scattered across the world. I mean, that's what this digital technology can do. And then more recently with Rafik downstairs, that was all about answering the question, the criticism that I received, which is, what do you do with your NFT? How do you exhibit it? How do you appreciate it as a collector? And so downstairs, you know, with the hard work and of Digital Art Fair, Jillian, James, I think we pulled off like a very telling answer to that question that could really be used as the benchmark for how NFT art can be displayed in the future and appreciated by a global audience.
Perfect, thank you. I can come back to Twobadour now. Hi, how are you displaying your Beeple's work, for example? How are you, and do you have anything to add to what Max has just said?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's fascinating to listen to James, Max, and the thing is, what I do realize is the NFTs have fundamentally changed the basic structures of how we approach creating art, collecting art, the economics around art and investing in art, right? And it's not like they're looking at it only from the perspective of NFTs. What NFTs coming to the mainstream has done, and sort of this collision of art and the NFT space, is that it has fundamentally shifted the dynamics of how we approach all of these things. So that's been the most fascinating part of this journey. And anybody that's into investment in this space has reasons to believe that. I mean, it's already very difficult because there is no historic data, and making up all of this data as you go along. In one sense, while it might feel like a leap of faith, what these people, on this panel, Metaverse and so many others in the scene are doing is to basically create that path forward. And I think that's very important. That realization also gives you a lot more freedom to experiment in the space. The understanding that because there is no historic data, you have to make some of the new rules as you go along. So that's kind of how I feel about the space. As for the question that Max very wonderfully raises, what do you do with those NFTs? That's the one question that has driven a whole series of innovations and experiments from the Metaverse side. We have not sold a single NFT so far. We never sold NFTs, but we did keep asking ourselves a question: what do we do with these NFTs? And so we've had various ways in which to accommodate the answer. One of them is, for instance, rideshare, and experiments in being able to lease your NFTs, via a smart contract, or even lease certain aspects of your NFTs via a smart contract. Then there was the B20 experiment, through which, instead of either flipping your NFT or locking it up in a vault, how about you create monuments out of them and make virtual experiences out of them? And now, in a increasingly post-pandemic world, with some exceptions, obviously, now that New York has opened up, we realize that there is immense potential for NFTs to be experienced in the physical world as well, right? Maybe not the other way around. Physical art might not always translate in high fidelity in its full impact in the virtual space, but virtual experiences can make for very heady, exciting physical experiences. That's what we're working on right now. Dreamverse is a physical event in New York on the 4th of November. We've split it into basically two aspects. There are no talking heads at Dreamverse. We just wanted to create a shift in the idea that NFTs are these virtual abstract things and make them completely experiential. So the first half of the event is the largest ever NFT art showcase on the planet. We're showcasing artwork from 150 artists, including Rafiq Anadol, Drew Kataoka, Beeple, and so many others. And the latter half is basically an EDM concert headlined by Alesso, with opening performances by RAC and Please and Thank You. And during that party, we will, for the first time, unveil the Beeple 5000 piece on 24-foot screens, which sort of phase and move between each other. So there is this element of spectacle, and the ability for people in this space, both physical and virtual, to extrapolate on the potential of NFTs, the ideas, experiences. So that's where we're at right now.
Cool.
I can just touch on that, the physical display. I think it is. I think everything that Twobadour is saying is correct. I mean, for us, I just put in the chat, like, we actually invested in Logo Frame, which it's a new project from the creator of Master and Dynamics, which is a really special high-end audiophile kind of founder. And we think it's the best physical display, but there's going to be a lot of different ways to experience it, whether it's in your home or in the metaverse. But I think increasingly we'll find very flexible ways to actually experience the NFTs, even like on your own devices, in AR. And I think we're really still pioneering these. I think we invested in another company called Cast, which is doing something in Shanghai with the Modern Art Museum. And what they do is they allow you to basically take your NFTs and unlock them so they can be broadcast or streamed. You can think of it almost like a streaming solution to any device. So we're starting to see a lot of innovation and a lot of different types of approaches to improving the experience. It's just that the experience layer of NFTs has always been problematic, but there's really a lot of money and innovation and kind of brains being thrown at it now, which I think will result in really pleasing and satisfying ways to engage NFTs.
Yeah, this discussion has already, evolved into where I really wanted to ask, which is the future, of NFT art collection. Where do you guys see, the future of NFT art collecting heading? Like, is there anything you would like to see, or like, what are kind of some themes, or where would you like it to head to? Any thoughts?
Well, I think clearly a lot. I just think clearly a lot of the traditional artists are going to move into doing NFTs, whether we've seen Hearst or Murakami, we will see lots more of them. And there'll be a lot of twinning as well, where there'll be a physical painting and an NFT, or a physical video file and an NFT video file, where you can have way more information and provenance. So I see that trend continuing forward. And I'm sure the technology will change, and they'll add extra innovations, especially generative art, which is constantly changing and updating. And I think that's super exciting, especially having a look at some of them around the show here. It really does make people think. I mean, all art before was static to a certain extent, whereby it was a static image or a video on a loop, but now you have things that are infinite.
So would there be kind of new things that crypto art collectors will have to consider now?
Yeah, of course. And we're not even sure what those will all be.
Thank you. Twobadour, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I think the question is more, how will art collecting itself change, and this might not be confined to crypto artists, how I'm looking at it. Because like James said, a lot of mainstream artists are going to venture into this space, and it's going to cause for very interesting overlaps in how we approach physical versus virtual things. The first thing that I think will happen is the realization that provenance is immutable, like Max was saying. That realization has to be more experiential than something that you write about or talk about on panels. That will come when a physical art collector sort of buys an NFT. So that link is inexorably made, I feel.
Thank you. Marco, I have a question. I'm actually quite interested to know, like, whether there are uncertainties with the blockchain technology that could affect, the way NFT art is created or bought or sold. Is there anything?
I think it's not the uncertainty, but actually is right now, if you look at crypto right now, there's a lot of regulatories, how you guys, hold a wallet. I think it's still, for a lot of the young collectors who want to come in this space, I think this still kind of scared them. Recently, I have my friends who have their OpenSea account, the OpenSea account wipe out as well. So there's still some risk in collecting because it's tied to your wallet, how you do cold storage. I think that is still a risk to a lot of artists. How do you do custodian? Do we, will Sotheby come in or Christie come in and go into the custodian world as well? Will Fidelity help us hold some of these NFT, which is in high value as well? That is up for discussion. I think that is actually, one of the things that we look into as well. The other thing is regulatory. I think regulatory and taxation as well. We haven't touched upon, taxation is how we trade. I think this is actually one of the risks that, might arise in the future that people should look at.
Yeah, for sure. Does anyone have anything to add?
So I just want to pop in on that, because I think custody, Marco brings up a really good point. Custody is a real problem because as these assets and artworks become more and more valuable, into the 7, even 8 figures, you need to have proper storage. And to be honest, a hardware wallet doesn't cut it anymore, not at these prices. And so we actually, one of our portfolio companies called Hex Trust, which is actually based in Hong Kong, they are the first company globally to offer fully licensed, insured NFT custody. And I really encourage all of you, we custody with them as well. Because as we kind of move on, what's interesting is that in the physical world, if you want to loan a piece, let's say you have artwork in art storage like Helitrans, you need to move it in and out anytime you want to lend it or display it. But what's interesting is in the NFT space, you can basically put your NFT into a custodian storage and you actually never need to move it ever again. Because in order to quote unquote lend it or to have people display it, there are already technologies which will allow it to sit in custody and allow people to broadcast or borrow or exhibit the verified authentic copy. So we're again kind of pioneering this new model of both custody and value and security, where it's actually kind of much more efficient than the current art world, where anytime you want to lend it to a museum exhibition, you got to pay for shipping, you got to pay for packing, you got to pay for all the kind of friction. So this will really enable a lot of NFTs, and I think this is where we go.
Max, is there a role for Sotheby's in this, for example?
Next week, there will be a major announcement from Sotheby's.
Okay, so no spoilers. No spoilers.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
But we are absolutely thinking about committing ourselves to the NFT marketplace in the future, because we really do see huge potential here, and nurturing new clients that may not be interested in traditional art, but completely enamored by this new physical medium. And we're starting to see some traditional collectors make the crossover. I can tell you that the direct underbidder at about $20 million for the Bored Ape sale was a traditional Asian collector, has an incredible collection of impressionist, modern, contemporary art, never bought an NFT in his life. Didn't end up with this one, but that was a pretty big bid as a first one for a project that he fully saw the value in and believed in.
Wow, very, very exciting, for sure. And actually, to follow up on Max, what your point just now, because I know you've just arrived in Hong Kong, but what would you say is something observably different in the consumption behavior of Hong Kong / Asian collectors to where you were before, like North America, other European collectors? Is there? I know you've only been here for two.
No, I mean, honestly, the real thing, like my primary role at Sotheby's is to run our contemporary department of physical art. I think I've had more conversations about NFTs than the traditional. Mm-hmm. I mean, the enthusiasm and excitement is really palpable here. I did see it in New York, and I did see it kind of everywhere I went. But here it's just the engagement, the excitement. I think it's just about taking that next step and making that first, purchase, setting up the wallet. There's a lot of hand holding to get through the first purchase, but once that's bridged, like there's going to be real potential.
Is Hong Kong ready in terms of like the cryptocurrency readiness? What about Marco?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Where does Hong Kong rank, for example?
I think Hong Kong is always ranked in the top because of our regulatories. Mm-hmm. We actually have approved exchanges, regulatory exchanges. We have asset management approved as well in Hong Kong. I think Hong Kong, the regulatory framework is quite ready. I think what's lacking is, clarifying whether NFT taxations wise, they haven't been really clear on whether that stands. I think another thing that I want to add back to the futures of NFT is we see now NFT, now we have collectibles, but I think what is very the big driver of it is going forward is actually decentralized finance combining with NFT, right? We have always been very difficult in, Andy Warhol trying to refinance it. It's not so easy. But with the NFT world, you have real-time pricing. I think, making refinancing easier for us as a hedge funds, easier to invest in other NFTs. Then once I have the leverage, then I can add on to that. So I think that's coming futures, DeFi adding to NFTs will be actually the biggest one.
So you'll be able to loan against your NFT portfolio at a rate, and then use that capital
deploy to buy more investments as well.
That makes sense. Thank you. We have 5 more minutes until the panel Q&A session. So audience members, please feel free to kind of come up with any questions. But with these last 5 minutes, could I ask, our panelists to see if they have any, final remarks or like final comments that you would like to say to potential, young crypto collectors on, what sort of things they should consider, or how to, Max, you mentioned the hand holding, like where do they begin, or like what sort of shift they should think about in terms of, their mindset or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I would So I think the logic holds true. Every time I get introduced to a new collector, the first thing I say is buy what you love. Because ultimately that is the most important thing. If the piece goes down in value tremendously, you're still living with something that you appreciated and that you love. If it goes down and you didn't like it, I mean, then that's a pretty bad situation.
Exactly.
So and especially at this early stage, there's still so many new artists that are just starting their careers. The price points are quite attractive at this time. I would create a Twitter account, because that's really where all the information is shared. With respect to NFTs. There's a whole community. I mean, don't be afraid to reach out to people to ask questions. What I've noticed, because I'm always constantly learning, is that the community that collects NFTs are quite open and quite, I guess, wholesome in many ways. Whereas the traditional art world, it's a little bit more cagey and reserved in terms of helping. So, yeah, buy what you love. Don't follow what everyone else is doing, because I've seen a lot of these projects go up and down just because of some influencer being attached to the project, and ask questions.
Perfect. James?
Yeah, I mean, following on from what Max said, I mean, there's a lot of information on YouTube and podcasts and stuff like that. And, when I first got involved into NFT specifically in terms of this technology, I learned a lot from people like Jehan and Twobadour and Max, because they had done a lot of podcasts and stuff on the net. And so it was very valuable. And thank you, guys.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of information out there, and you can pick it up. You just have to go through it a little bit, and you'll make a few mistakes, but that's part of the process.
Awesome. Marco, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's go back to the community. I think to us, the most value is buy what we love. I think what added to the value beside, the price going up for the ape community is for the ape is the community. I actually have made a lot of friends through that network, and these are valuable friends. These are not, friends that don't have value and impact on my business as well. These are people who love crypto, who love NFTs, and now we exchange a lot of ideas. I think young investor can, start in getting in this community and learn. You might not have to go for the high-end, NFT. You can start with low, because I think what really difference from the real artwork is to the NFT artwork, the price range are the same, right? You can go from very low to very high as well, but people can actually start to, learn the transaction process and how to open a OpenSea account, have a MetaMask wallet. Then I think that's actually a learning process for getting not into NFT, but also into crypto as well.
Thank you. What about Jehan and Twobadour? Any final comments, words of advice?
Yeah, I mean, this is not investing advice, but I will give you collecting advice. I think that anybody who's not collecting Beeple right now, you will, in about 2 years, regret it. I think that Beeple is absolutely the new Banksy. I think that people don't understand how smart and how important he is, not just to the market, but more importantly to the trajectory of the new chapter of contemporary art history, which is machine art, digital art, and outsider digital artists like Beeple. And right now we're going to look back and hats off to Twobadour, and the whole, kind of Metaverse crew, because 69 million is going to be seen as very cheap, when all is said and done in art history. You really don't get the chance to kind of take these kind of seminal positions, and make no mistake that Beeple is at the forefront of this entire kind of fine art revolution, and it's very important that people collect his work. In addition, I think that people should be collecting the work of Rafiq Anadol. What Max and the Digital Art Fair have done downstairs, and I'm gutted that I can't see it in person. I work closely with Rafiq and Beeple, and I think that what he's done with this immersive room will easily be seen as one of the seminal works in the history of NFTs, and I think it's a very, very important piece. And I think that additional artists who are from this whole kind of generation, Josh Davis as PlayStation, Craig Mullins, who's the grandfather of digital painting, as well as Ash Thorpe, who's a good, incredible artist and contemporary of Beeple's. All of these are really important. Even Andre Reisinger, who's doing incredible work in the design and NFT collecting, mixing physicals with NFTs, they're all just pioneers. And again, like the work is not cheap from a dollar perspective, but I think from a historical and kind of market perspective, having been an art dealer for so many years, there's pattern recognition here. And I think that you should be, collecting these works now while you can. They'll be soon out of reach. I'm going to throw all the names into the chat in case people want to kind of follow on there.
Awesome. Amazing, thank you. And lastly, Twobadour.
It gets harder and harder to follow all these guys with every question. They've said everything basically. There's hardly anything to add, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. I think the joy of collecting or even investment in the space is not to collect someone or invest in something that's already made its mark. The joy is in sort of accompanying or going on that journey, that upward trajectory along with the artist, along with the enterprise. And the beauty of the NFT space, like Max mentioned sometime earlier, is that it upends traditional economic models. And so the value is much more fairly distributed between the collector and the artist and the space. So in a sense, that's been part of the efforts of Metaverse, and Dreamverse itself is an experiment in that regard. Not all of the 150 artists are massive names in the space, but they are important for a variety of reasons. Most important of which is that they've been chosen by artists themselves. They haven't been curated by Metaverse or by Artie. We worked with the 10 artists that we fell in love with when we first entered the space, and through them fell in love with the space, and asked them to pick 10 of their favorite artists. And the result was this massive collection of artists at Dreamverse. So just browsing through that collection alone, those experiences alone, can give you a great sense of the eclectic nature and the diversity within the NFT space. I think that'd be a great place to start. I'm going to take leaf out of Khan's book and say, definitely do collect or buy what you love. But I'd also say, sort of a left field suggestion is that art need not be your first foray into the NFT space. The big advantage with NFTs is that you can start with a context that you are most familiar with in your everyday life. If you're a gamer, go check out Axie Infinity. If you love basketball, go to NBA Top Shots. If you're into F1, go to F1 Delta Time 111, right? So when you approach the NFT space through that context, through that lens, it starts to make a lot more sense to you. Everything from the basic stuff like setting up a wallet, getting yourself onboarded, the tokenomics or the pricing of those assets within that ecosystem start to make sense to you, because cars, basketball players, moments, and now if it's overpriced or not, if the economics are sustainable or not, and then you can extend your circle of interest and influence outwards from there. That would be my suggestion. So TLDR, go to Dreamverse and then start with the NFT space with the context that you enjoy.
Very smart advice indeed. Do we have questions? Sure.
Yeah, I would like to ask, we heard a lot about visual arts, and then I think some of the panelists talked about audio as a form of art. Can we talk a little bit more about what other art forms will be the next one to find its way into the NFT world? What type of characteristics we would like to see for them to be successful?
Does anyone?
Clearly at the moment, generative art is having a moment. And, basically in this idea that the art will constantly update and constantly evolve and have an infinite sort of possibilities of how it can be viewed with the Rafik pieces downstairs and the shred piece upstairs. I think that's obviously a very hot sector and an idea that is getting people very excited about, an art that will interact with its environment as well. It'll interact with you when you're around the panel. It'll interact with the Wi-Fi and what's happening in the data sets. And I think that's the new trend that I'm watching.
So I would say it's at Sotheby's we have different departments: contemporary art, impressionist, jewelry, watches, wine. We really run the gamut of what people find value in as a collectible. I think we can access this in a very interesting way to model it similar with the NFT approach. Right now we're focusing a lot on the artistic side and that's incorporating like the Beeples, but then the Bored Apes of that whole branch. I'm just defining as kind of an artistic approach. But I think music is a really huge opportunity and potential where you can start as a fan, start owning the rights along with the artist from the release and building up royalties for buying in and supporting the artist at the onset. Fashion, I think, is gonna have a huge intersection with both digital wearables, but then also the ability to buy in early to new fashion lines, have a whole secondary market trading before the fashion, the physical work is even shipped to you. So I think that there's a lot of interplay there. And then gaming is like, I mean, you guys can speak more about that, but that is just gonna fly. Yeah.
I think art art has always been this interplay between abundance and scarcity, right? I mean, nature is abundant, but that twilight moment is scarce. Human emotions are abundant, but that particular moment between two people is scarce. So this interplay has always been like a central theme and source of inspiration for art. Today, data is abundant, code is abundant, and data is art, code is art. I mean, that's what, artists like Rafiq Anadol uses, images, millions and millions of images, hundreds of lines of code. For instance, code is art in terms of generative art, like Fidenza is code, but that is art, what it turns out to be. So the other aspect, I think, where this is headed definitely is that the more the collector himself or the experiencer of the art is involved in that art, that's where I think it's going. People want to engage with it at more and more meaningful levels. You just don't want to experience it on a two-dimensional frame anymore. You want to own a part of a layer of art with you, which you sort of define yourself. You become part of the work of art yourself. So I think a good indicator, a good sort of a roadmap for people to look at is how artists are beginning to use technology in these manners, how much they are willing to let you inside their own work of art is going to be very interesting. That's where it's headed.
Very true. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, sure. But do you want to?
How do you establish a blockchain? Making a pink or selling it online. How do you make a blockchain?
Marco,
I think this, we talk about digital art, but actually the NFT, if it's not digital, it's physical art. You can also put the patent on the blockchain as well. So right now you can buy Andy Warhol, but then you can, slice it down into smaller sections that you can buy. How you put it on the blockchain is you transfer that patents onto the blockchain. So the ownership is within the token using a smart contract tied onto it. So you just have that token smart contract to represent the ownership of it.
So you would mint it on you would pick a blockchain, maybe Ethereum blockchain, and you can go into OpenSea. There's a website, and you can go and upload the image, and you click create or mint, and it will create for you.
So you don't need to program the.
Yeah, I mean,
if it's if it's using a public blockchain, you don't have to program.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Hi, so thank you first of all for hosting this wonderful panel. And my question is more directly towards Twobadour, and it's on Beeple, and maybe it's relevant to Jehan as well because he mentioned Beeple. But because Jehan mentioned that one of the greatest things about Beeple and why he's great is his use of machine art and how that's facilitating a paradigm shift in the way that we appreciate our art and collect art. But then specifically for Twobadour yourself, what is the value of Beeple to you specifically? And kind of apart from his use of technology, what about the way he uses technology is valuable in his artistic creation?
I'd say, it's not just the use of technology. For us, why we fell in love with Beeple first is that he felt to us like a metaphor for this digital generation. Look at the artist, right? He creates art for art's sake. He's been putting out one work of art every day, right? On his good days, on his bad days, sick days, healthy days. on the days that his wife went into labor, that almost spiritual level of consistency that he puts into this work was very powerful to us. And the message is simple, right? I mean, you can start anywhere, but you keep at it and you hit the end of the rainbow, whether it's at the end of a year or 13 years. So that aspect was very important to us, because all of us are starting on this new journey in this new digital age, in this new space. And that kind of a discipline amidst all of this chaos was very important to us. That's why we really like Beeple. And also the fact that he never confined himself to a very particular style or a particular theme or even a particular technology. His idea was to get better at what he was doing every day. And I think that, using technology with that intent is very powerful.
That's your question. Do we have any more questions from the audience?
I have one question.
Sure, please.
So Jehan and Metakoven, when are we going to see your bids on the Rafik room tomorrow?
I'm always very public when I bid. So I have this. I
know. I'm waiting.
Live tweeting my bids. I collect Rafik. I own, his non-NFT works as well. I've been a fan for a while, and again, huge supporter and excited. So, just sit tight, and your patience will be rewarded.
Oh, I'm sweating here. I'm sorry, and I'm so sorry, Twobadour. I don't know what came over me. That's my apologies.
No worries.
Cool. We have probably time for one more question. Any questions? Oh, okay. I can't see it. I can't see the question. Maybe you just. Wow. Okay. On the copyright, I have a question on copyright of a digital artwork. For the creator of the artwork, he decides to make 5 NFTs for the artwork. He calls all 4 NFTs and keeps one. Do all owners, including the creator, have the same copyrights? Can the creator restrict the licensing rights of the other 4 owners in the NFTs? People in NFTs always talk about ownership rather than copyright.
Yeah, that's actually a lovely question, a very pertinent and timely one as well. As things stand, my understanding is that the artist owns all the copyright for a particular piece. But now, I'm glad you asked that question, because Metaverse is working on something that would allow an artist to do exactly what you just said here. You can split aspects of that NFT. You can give specific licensing rights for a particular piece to different people and sort of track the provenance of that. So yes, it is possible, and we are working on it.
Perfect. Thank you.
I know specifically that the creators do have copyright.
Okay. I hope that answers your question. Do we have time to overrun a little bit just to cover 2 more of these questions? Okay. Is there a legal framework that protects NFT collectors right now? Does anyone? Marco shakes his head.
I don't think this. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, probably, with policies, we need to catch up as always. What's your thought about traditional contemporary artists, e.g. Damien Hirst, Jeff Koons, getting involved in crypto art? Will it be a short trend only, or would it keep expanding? Is it worth to invest? Just like Damien Hirst, he just launched his NFT art projects. The currency, the price is rapidly rising. So Jeff Koons also announced that he will have an NFT to be launched within a year. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm able to take a swing at that. I think that what Damien has done is good from a kind of market perspective. I think it's very consistent with the quality of his work recently, and I think it's fine. It's great for that to have that kind of a prominence, and he clearly has his audience. But more broadly, I would look at there's a whole host of artists that are coming into this space. We've been in extensive talks with a number of like the top global fine art museums and institutions about helping them to kind of get into this space as well. You're going to see more and more artists coming out. Again, like Urs Fischer is represented by Gagosian and dropped his NFTs through Pace. And those are some of, I think, the most important fine art NFTs at the moment to collect, much more important than Damien Hirst's, in my mind. But then also you have Tom Sachs, who is also like a blue chip fine artist, who did his Tom Sachs Rocket Factory, incredible series. But there are also a whole host of other artists who are increasingly coming in. So you're just going to see it expand and expand and expand. And hopefully the artists who are from the fine art world will engage with digital art and engage with the surface of NFTs in ways that are consistent with their art practice and not just making, NFTs for the sake of making NFTs. And I think that, eventually we won't really talk about NFT art anymore. We'll just be talking about art, and NFTs and digital art will just be another medium. That's why I actually think that, the contemporary art world will assimilate at least the fine art practice of NFTs, because it's done so with every other medium that fine art practices in from the beginning of time.
Thank you, Jehan. And just to cover the final question, it says, a panelist just said subsequent buyers of an NFT may need to pay royalties to the original owner. So how is the copyright of an artwork split? I think he or she might be referring to Max, as the panelist just said. I think you mentioned the paying royalties to the original owner. Do you know how the copyright of the artwork is split?
I think the copyright stays with the creator.
Right, yeah.
The copyright will stay with the creator, and then the creator can build
The royalties.
the royalties
are split, so not the
in
copyright.
perpetuity. Correct.
The royalties aren't split; they remain with the creator.
Yeah, there are specific projects where the creators have given the blessing to the owners to have copyright, such as the Bored Apes. So you're going to start to see, the same way that everything is escalating and changing and moving forward, there's going to be different approaches to a lot of these questions, and it'll serve some collections better than others.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you to all panelists, and thank you to our audience and also our online audience. It's been a fascinating panel. We thank you all our panelists for joining us today, and see you again next time. Thank you.